There have been some big developments in the India-China standoff that has now gone on for 2 years. Indian and Chinese troops, as we speak, are disengaging in the Gogra Hot Springs area in Ladakh. This is commonly called as Patrol Point 15, that is PP15. This move is coming after reaching a consensus in the 16th round of military talks that were held on July 17th. Now, the development is also coming ahead of the SCO meet in Samarkand, where Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping will be meeting face-to-face for the first time since the standoff began in 2020. Sushant Sareen is an advisor at ORF. He's joining us for a quick perspective on how the story is playing out. Sushant Sareen, how do you read today's development? There was an official press release that was put out by the Indian Army saying that as we speak, disengagement is currently underway in Gogra Hot Springs.
I think the press release which has come out, or the joint press release which has come out from both countries, doesn't really say very much, except for the fact that there is disengagement taking place. Now, on the face of it, it is to be welcomed. But I think I would be a little curious to know what exactly has been worked out between both sides. I just hope that we haven't made any kind of a bargain of the sorts we made on the Pangong So standoff when we kind of withdrew from the Kailash Heights. That is one. On the other hand, I think we need also to be very careful about the fact that the Chinese over the last 2 years or so have built in a number of structures along the LAC, which mean that in a manner of speaking, the settlement of the LAC actually becomes a lot more difficult than what it already was. And there is unlikely to be any real compromise from either side on that particular issue. So I think that raises concerns, plus the fact that if the Chinese can have permanent presence not too far away from where the actual LAC is running right now, then their ability to mobilize very fast is there, and that becomes a matter of concern, which means that we have to match up to our with our deployments. I think those concerns are going to stay. And finally, Shreya, I think we also need to look at the Chinese way of negotiating, that they first come in, they first carry out these kind of offensive measures, and then they drag it up for almost, it's been more than 2 years now. It's a piecemeal kind of a thing, all as though, they are giving you some concession towards the end, but keeping the big stick in the background. And I don't think that is something which is going to be very conducive to either build trust between India and China, or to some kind of a modus vivendi along the borders. I think the Indians are going to be increasingly very wary and very suspicious of the Chinese. So I think the damage has been done, and it'll take a long time to undo it.
The concerns remain with Depsang and Demchok. There is absolutely no agreement about what happens in these two areas, and these two areas are critical. Also, every time there is news of disengagement, the fact is, Sushant, and you'll help us understand better, that it's only the first step. That all right, the two, soldiers of two sides are not perilously close to each other, and there is some sort of buffer zone between them. But the ultimate aim is to de-escalate and to de-induct. And that is not happening anytime soon. We are in it for the long haul.
Exactly. So if we are not going to be de-inducting, which is exactly what I was saying earlier, that if you are going to be building those permanent structures, then there is a kind of a permanence to this standoff. Maybe not eyeball to eyeball, but fairly close to that. So I think that becomes a bit of a problem for, at least from the Indian perspective. The other part is of the Depsang thing. Now, look, the Depsang crisis actually started way back in 2013. But I think the Indians did a smart thing by including it in the negotiations, over the recent standoff, bringing it onto the table and wanting to discuss it. So in a manner of speaking, the conflict which had started, conflict is not the correct word, but the standoff which had started in 2020, that part is over. But the problems which preceded 2020 to remain outstanding, especially on the Depsang plains,
Correct.
where it's a matter of serious concern. The other thing, Shreya, is that while we are again withdrawing, and like I mentioned earlier, what has actually been agreed upon? Does this mean that India will no longer, be able to patrol areas which it was not able to patrol anyways for some time now? Does that become a permanent situation now? Or is there some kind of a modus vivendi which has been worked out on that particular count? And it's not very clear from what has been released today on what exactly the agreement is on that particular.
Sushant, I have 1 minute, but I do want to ask you this question, if you can wrap up the answer in a minute. Anything about the timing? 15th of September, Prime Minister Modi, 15-16, Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping are coming face-to-face for the first time since the standoff began in Samarkand. Is it a classic Chinese move? We've seen this in the past, right?
Yeah, we saw that after Doklam.
Correct.
The disengagement took place because, the BRICS thing had to take place in China and there was a cloud over it. Maybe this is from the Chinese side. They want to, try and move on because let's face it, the Chinese are also facing a lot of pressure from the West. They are facing a lot of pressure as far as Taiwan is concerned. We were a little paranoid, or we were a little afraid that maybe, the Chinese will try and divert their attention from Taiwan onto India. Because, if you can't do something in Taiwan, then you save face against India. Maybe that is not going to happen. And maybe the Chinese have decided that it is better to tackle one front at one point of time. Or it could be part of a larger Chinese strategic game plan to try and secure, their near neighborhood rather than, have problems with countries like India. At least try and disarm this particular issue to the extent it is possible to move on. But I don't think anybody in India is going to be very sanguine about the prospects of India-China relationships in the future.
Well, they're rock bottom at the moment. Thank you very much. We'll leave it there for the moment, Sushant Sareen. Thank you very much. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets President Xi Jinping in Samarkand. As I said, first face-to-face meeting between the two men after the standoff began in Eastern Ladakh. And it's been more than 2 years now. With that, it's a wrap from me. Thanks very much for watching. But do stay with us because all the day's top news is coming up next.